Most buyers never tell you where you lost them. They sit through your demo, read your proposal, take your follow-up call, and then they go quiet. And somewhere in your sales process, that deal gets marked as lost to a competitor or no decision. But the truth is usually simpler, and it's harder to hear. The process broke down somewhere, and nobody on your team saw it coming, because your buyers have a seat at every meeting you will never be invited to. The outside seat sits in that seat. I'm Mike Tumulty, founder of Inside Now, where we go through your commercial funnel as a real buyer and tell you exactly what we find. I'm also the host of the Outside Seat podcast, where I bring that conversation to the people who can actually do something about it. Every week, two strands. The GTM leaders talking strategy, and then the unsung heroes talking reality. Brought to you by Flourish, the GTM talent partner that connects hiring, development, and performance in sales, in life. Now to today's show. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of The Outside Seat, joined today by Revital. She will share a little bit about herself in a moment, but this episode it's really in line with what we're trying to do with The Outside Seat and look at things from the buyer's perspective. And who better than having Revital come on and talk about the buyer's perspective, the buyer's journey. Why don't you give 2 cents about who you are and what you've been doing recently?
Sure. First of all, thank you, Mike. I'm really thrilled to be here and seeing you again. Well, a little bit about myself. I've been 22, maybe a little bit more years in the post-sale customer-facing organization. Started from a support organization, going through CS, customer marketing, customer education, um, all the bandwidths from providing functional support to the commercial side of things, in enterprise and in startups, working with SMB, working with enterprises. So I kind of had the entire rainbow, I think, of customers to see and the function that goes with it. And I'm really looking forward to this discussion today.
The one word that you said throughout that is customer. Customer, 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 which is fantastic. So you've led customer success pretty much at every level, from director through to chief customer officer. How has your understanding of what the function actually is changed over that journey from being somebody maybe at the front end speaking to customers on a day-to-day basis through to leading the whole strategy from a customer perspective? How's that journey changed?
It really changed dramatically since we started. So, CSM was introduced around 2005. And in the beginning, it was more about moving, the word was about moving from reactive, so giving care, to proactive. And, the word was around adoption. So that was kind of the framework. And of course, the activity and what the execution was, how it looked back then. Um, but then, and I want to say during this journey that I'm going to elaborate a little bit more, that it changed in a way that more responsibilities and additional roles were added on top. So we moved from being more proactive and preserving, the customer, to talk about, of course, retention, and we started talking about adoption. And then we start talking about, okay, but we need from GRR, we're now moving to talk about NRR. So we're talking about expansion and contributing actively to growing the revenue, not just demonstrating value. It was a lot about demonstrating value. And now we start talking, and today we're talking about customer success 2.0, which is a growth engine.
There has been a seismic shift in the last 10 years when it comes to how CS organizations are being measured. Like you said, from a GRR perspective, right? What's our retention? What's our retention? Through to that NRR, which is obviously looking at the elements that you just explained. What's What's the skill set difference? Is there a skill set difference from when it was purely looking at GRR to looking at NRR? Because there's things in there like upsell, cross sell, um, negotiating on discounts, negotiating on price. Has the skill set shifted during that time as well?
Definitely, but I want to say one thing before that, because the profile of the CSM, when a company built their hiring strategy around customer success, it always very much. I think it's the same with sales. It really associated with the field, with who you are selling to, what is it that you're selling, and so on. If let's say that your product is super technical, okay, so you would need to hire somebody that is very technical and knowledgeable, not just within the solution that you are introducing. If it's a complex solution, you would look to find the expertise that will create that value for the customer. And a company will tend to maybe let go of the commercial side of it, because hiring wise, it's very hard to find somebody that is. Um, I can give short examples from Incredible, where I worked. We were selling for CTOs, so I had to recruit um, R&D team leaders and DevOps, and they were functioning as CSM. To expect them to do also sales, it was a little bit far fetched. It's like looking for a triple unicorn. You can't find that. Um, on the other hand, there are some softwares where this expertise is something that you can definitely enable. Okay. So there, the expectation is that, yes, you can do also the commercial side of things. And there is, and people that are senior CSM and has the experience of being a good CSM for a while, they will be expected also to make sales and to have negotiation skills alongside demonstrating the value and being very much knowledgeable on the solution and the ecosystem that they are practicing. So, and it definitely wasn't there. Let's take 10 years ago. It's something that is, I would say, recently. So it's for quite a while, but it wasn't there at the beginning. And today, yes, it's an expectation. Again, depends on the solution, and it all starts when a company understand um, that the talent that they would bring in need to have specific skills, and what is more important. So it's building a strategy around hiring as well.
So dependent on the customer profile, it's horses for courses, if you like, of this is the profile that we need to be able to service the profile of customer that we have. And that could be um, more junior CS type, but invariably, when you get to enterprise, these are people that are steeped in the expertise of that particular industry. The last company I worked for was a company called Localize, and that was localization software, and it's very, very technical in its nature. And the best CSMs that we had were those people that were steeped in localization experience, rather than the skill sets of a salesperson or somebody coming through the BDR program and moving into the CS. The best ones that we had were those people that had had that localization experience. And it goes back to your point of finding those people with that R&D experience or that technical experience more so than the sales experience.
Yeah, and I was wondering, from sales perspective, I know that, I've been working with sales reps all my life. Um, I, I I guess there is the equivalent also in sales, because you would see salespeople, even changing companies, but within an industry that you already have a knowledge on how to sell to a certain persona. So, am I right? Is that like the equivalent?
Yes, to a point. There are transferable skills clearly that if you're an enterprise sales rep and you're speaking to the enterprise buyer's persona, there are skills that you've developed and designed that you can take with you, the different methodologies that you can take with you, and then you can learn from a product perspective. What it comes down to is what is your ramp time? So, how quickly can you master the industry that you're moving into. Now, if you've already come from that industry and you've already got the skill sets and you've already got the knowledge of that industry, then your ramp time is should be significantly reduced. If there's one or two of those elements that you need to learn, then your ramp time might take a little bit longer than somebody who's got that experience.
So I think it's really about we started this conversation about the nature of hiring and how customer success evolved. And what we're saying is that on top of being technical and knowledgeable, now the CS is also requires to sell. I do want to say though, one reservation is that the type of sales is a bit different because we're not, making the sales people irrelevant. They're super relevant to still working together very closely with the customer success. The type of sales would be more organic. This is what that comes from extending number of seats, maybe adding more licenses. But when it comes, and again, it's also depends on the segment. It's different when we're talking about enterprise to SMB to the what we call digital touch. Um, but they are also responsible to help the sales create the funnel.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Do you have a preference when it comes to building and designing your CS organization for those elements which are expansion of seats, or whatever the value indicator is for that organization? It might be burst pricing, it might be usage pricing rather than just seats. Should that, in your view, sit squarely within sales, sit squarely within CS, or a mix of those?
I think it's always both. I mean, eventually it's the same practice done by two departments, but that always needs to be very much in sync and very much working together. So I don't think that one of us can decide for the other. Okay, so I think it's there will be. I can give you a very I think good example when I was working and there was the pandemic going off, 2020, and I was 1 month into my role, and I took a decision that I'm giving licenses for free. Okay, for people to work from home. It was an on-prem solution. And that was my decision. It was a commercial decision. It was something that had impact, but it was my decision. Um, Eventually, what happened is that when everybody got back to the office, everybody wanted to buy their home licenses as well. So we also made revenue out of it. But that was something that it was under my responsibility because it was very much associated with retention in a very critical time. So that was something that was done, that was kind of decided one-sided. Not really. We had a discussion around it, but that this is where it came from. Um, but in general, I think that alignment and taking into consideration the effects on each side should be very carefully considered.
Yeah, I think how you show up for your customers in their most difficult times usually comes back to you in spades a little bit later. And there's probably many, many examples of that where that's a perfect example you just explained. Like during the pandemic, those customers, all of their staff are going home, and you extended licenses to those people that they can continue to work, rather than go to them and say, "Well, your staff are at home now. This is a different license. We're going to charge you for it." I think that will help from a retention perspective, the way you just explained it. So I think that's a really commercial mindset of how to help customers, and the buyers on that perspective they'll remember that, and they'll remember it when the renewal comes. They'll remember it in 3 4 years time when that renewal comes as well. So I think that's a very smart commercial decision to make. If you look at customer success and how it's actually treated within a lot of organizations, and forgive me if this becomes a little bit too generalized in this particular part of the conversation, but in a lot of organizations, customer success is treated as the support function. but what does it actually cost a business to make that mistake? What's required to shift the leadership's thinking? Because as customer success leaders, we're really talking about retention and how do we do that? And there are elements where we have to support, but when CS is being asked to be the support, what what does that actually cost the business?
Well, let's start with the bottom line. It's very expensive, and I'll explain. Um, One of the things that you don't want to be in business is surprised. You don't want to be surprised that you get discontinuation of your service letter from a very big company. You don't want your customers to not reply and go uh, offline in terms of the relationship. Um, what you want to do is to be on top. And I hate this word. I don't know if we have an equivalent. One of the most important thing that customer success has to do is to penetrate the organization of the customer. I don't know, maybe if there's a lighter word to be used, but this is what we're using. Um, and while we always associate discovery to sales, discovery is something that we do all the time with our customers. And that what prevents the churn and create more opportunities. If you stay on the support side and you're not monetizing what you can with your customer, you're not managing the customer. Okay. You're not managing the potential of that and the value, monetary value that you can bring into your organization. So yeah, it costs you a lot. Uh, and one of the things that customer success is always struggling about, and I hope AI will now resolve, and hopefully also management will take the right decision, is the bandwidth to actually do all this work, to go and have more conversation and draw the power map of their own organization and get to know, make more connection with the C level and make more connection on the champion level. That takes time and effort. Um, and one of the things that AI brings now to the table is increasing this bandwidth for us to do a better work in discovery, penetration to the organization, demonstrating the value, getting to the right people, creating defenses for our solution within that organization. Um, and unfortunately, you hear about headcount drops instead of taking this bandwidth and putting it back as an investment into the operation. I think that companies that does this today are kind of missing the point.
Yeah, I think it's a really good segue, and let me be asking maybe an uncomfortable question. So here's how I heard that. Maybe it's the uncomfortable version of that. If AI can do all of that, whether it's monitoring every customer signal, predict churn before it gets into a QBR, you've got AI that can then create the QBR deck. It can personalize at scale. If AI can do all of that, what does a great CSM actually need to be in 2026 that a model like an LLM or whatever that AI model cannot replicate?
That's a good question. Uh, and this is what I said. I think I also wrote a post about it recently. We don't want CSMs that an AI can replace because they're not good CSM. If AI can replace you, you are not a good CSM anyway. Uh, Good CSM does those things that AI cannot do. AI can bring you the signal, it cannot act on it. AI cannot make more relationships and build relationships, uh, and crawl to all kinds of corners in the organization to bring the next opportunity. It cannot smell the opportunity coming from a conversation taking place or the risk coming from maybe that one it can. I don't know. That becomes very sophisticated, the AI, but um, it cannot act on it. And I think that while AI gives us great answers from whatever we feed to it, because eventually you need to have sources for it to run off, it doesn't still knows to ask the right questions. And that is what a good CSM would know to do. And those questions are sometimes hard questions that you need to ask your customer. What is your next project? When are you going to finish? Who can you introduce me to? What are your let's see how you can share some numbers with me so we would know where we stand. So these are things that I don't know how AI would know to behave or conduct itself in a conversation. And lastly, I don't think that if we're talking about the enterprise segment, I'm not sure that customers would want to engage with AI, because it's always been the case that human connection was the premium, right? And we've seen it all the time. So there's digital touch when you are very small, so you don't get to have a conversation with a human. You need to do everything yourself. And then you get a little bit more bandwidth if you are in the SMB segment. And if you're an enterprise, so you are one of maybe 5 to 10 accounts that this human gives its attention to. And I think it's a trend anyway, but I don't think that a CSM is something that is gonna go away and be replaced with AI.
What do you see as then the biggest opportunity for the CSM organization with the introduction of AI capabilities? How can we move the needle to move faster, improve GRR, improve NRR, improve all of the metrics that we have around our business? How can we augment AI into our daily practices to really help accelerate?
So first and foremost, it's taking away the manual work that needs to be done, and that's a lot. That's a lot that CSMs are investing or invested so far in, and that alone creates quite a bandwidth for us to do, what I mentioned before: do a proper discovery, build more relationship, be more attentive to what you hear in conversations. Um, and the second is, it is more, it can process a lot of data very quickly. So it is really good in um, bringing those signs and oversight that usually maybe a person will not see or miss, and to put it in front of you, and sometimes even suggest the next step. Uh, but this is very, very helpful. And I've seen some tools doing this today. And, you can imagine that this is just the beginning. So these tools are going to be more and more um, sophisticated. Uh, but eventually, again, the way I see it, their task is to create more focus, uh, process a lot more data more fast, and create a bandwidth for what only humans at this point, and I'm stressing at this point because I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, only humans at this point can actually do in order to be on top of the account, uh, you know, tackle issues prior to happening, um, just acting to find those next opportunities and retaining better.
Now, before we continue, a word from today's sponsor, Flourish. Most businesses don't underperform because they can't hire or don't invest in training. They underperform because the two things never talk to each other. Hiring happens over here, development happens over there, and somewhere in the middle, invariably performance breaks down. Flourish fixes that. They're an award-winning go-to-market talent partner working across early career SDR hiring, senior sales talent, and practical training that drives real, measurable results and not just activity. I've personally worked with their managing director, Sarah Skelton, for almost 20 years, so I know how they operate. They stay invested through the full journey and not just the placement. If you're looking to build a commercial team that actually performs, Flourish is where I would start. Find them at helloflourish.com. In sales, in life. And what mistakes are businesses making today when it comes to AI, specifically from a customer success perspective? Any anecdotes or any data points that you've seen in your role of consulting?
Well, I haven't seen yet an organization that implemented a full uh, blown. There are strategies today put in place. There are some tools. I think that the first mistake is really just to cut down the headcounts. Not completely. When you need, if you have a reason to to cut down on the headcounts, so that's okay. But not on the account of the bandwidth that AI puts you. You need to invest it back.
Yeah, and maybe the cynic in me here is going to shine through. But whenever I see the role being advertised for an AI GTM engineer that is being placed within an organization, my instinct is always to go, there's redundancies coming. There is some cost cutting coming within that organization in the future. It's being positioned internally of we can improve our adoption of AI. We can help you become even more productive. We can help you take away some of that manual labor. But ultimately, the end goal is we can get rid of 20% or 30% by hiring one or two people within this GTM engineer. This sits within RevOps, and we can get rid of people in this role and that role because we've now got AI doing a lot of the manual work. That's the cynic in me. What I think there's a missed opportunity where if you tackle that AI GTM engineer role and look at the buyer's journey and the buyer's experience, and that's forefront of your thinking when designing that role, then you could do some remarkable things. But the cynic in me suggests that when businesses are posting that, they've had that conversation of how many people can we get rid of in 3, 6, 12 months' time because we've got this role? How are we going to pay for this role? That's the cynic in me.
Let's play like the devil and the angel. So the devil would say that, and it's not. I don't think he's wrong. But if to be a little bit more merciful, I would say that companies are confused. There's so much pressure coming from investors.
No, so it's a really balanced view of looking at it. You're more probably more on the right side of that than I am in terms of the way that you look at it, because I've seen it. I've probably got too many battle scars over the last 2 years of where businesses are trying to cut left, right, and centre, and they see this as an opportunity. But from your perspective, I think there is a lot of external pressures on um, how to adopt AI within your business practices, whether that's from the private equity, from the VC, from your less so, I believe, from customers. Do custom? In fact, let me ask you a question. Do you think customers care if you are leveraging AI technology to support them, or is it as long as I'm getting the support, I don't really care?
I think that customer expectation is now also changed because if you were to say, I will get you this fix and it's going to take a month today, why aren't you developing with AI? Didn't you implement it? Why it's going to take so much time? The elevation in service is something that I think customers are expecting. It's not just about what the companies are doing internally. And I think that also, I don't think it's there yet because everybody is busy now with AI. But it will come that customers, as you said, if the service that I'm getting is okay, I'm okay with that. But if you start, and that happens often, that you give your word to a fix and it's prolonged, and so there's another excuse that the customer can come with to say, aren't you working with AI? Don't you develop with AI? Don't you have some kind of an automated service? Don't you have something? The expectation goes up also from the client side.
Interesting. Interesting, because I think a lot of businesses, they talk about AI to their customers of, "This is the product that I have, which is leveraging AI, which I can sell to you," rather than, "How are we supporting, that customer on their journey outside of, here's some feature," and it's AI-enabled feature. That's an interesting perspective, and I think some of that probably comes through the level of experience that you have. So let's talk about that a little bit. You've been a chief customer officer, and now you're advising organizations on CS and growth, and but you're doing it as an independent. What does the outside view teach you that you could not see clearly from the inside? So once you're in an organization, you sometimes you can't see the wood for the trees. When you take a step back and you're there as an independent and you're looking in, you do sometimes get a different perspective. That's what I do from the outside. I look from the outside to see what's actually happening. What about you from a CS perspective?
One of the things that, and this is, if you go to my website, you will see it very clearly. I think that what clouds the judgment and uh, building the gap between strategy and execution is what's happening between management, middle management, and the employees, and that's, I will call it in the not so nice word, politics. Okay, and I mentioned also being defensive. There's so much that is being broken over being defensive, creating narratives, defensive narratives, um, conflict of I wouldn't say conflict of interest, although it's also present, um, but just forces that works against each other rather working together, and how much an objective voice that comes into the organization and just look at it from an eye that is not biased can actually pinpoint um, where the break is, and also to say, and from and bringing my own experience, also to say, this will move the needle, this is not important, this is somewhat important, and you kind of try to eventually go out with some insights that is being translated to a plan that you can actually um, execute. This is why when I sell my services, I try to sell it to the highest rank. Okay, so for the person that will allow me to bring my objectivity. So I think this is one of the thing that we see a lot. I see a lot um, in um, in organization. Uh, and also, I want to say, for a while now, I've been working with relatively young organizations. So I think there's a lot of not knowing how much they don't know yet. There's a lot of things that experience can bring, and I'm happy to fill the gap there. So I think, more or less, these are the things that I see that usually makes a difference.
Yeah, there's some important points in there around businesses don't know what they don't know. And until they are educated or enabled on what good practice looks like, they continue to, I was going to say, behave poorly. And that sounds like it's a conscious decision. It's not. It's because they don't know what good looks like. It's difficult to then provide the good service. So that's really interesting. If you look at some of those good and poor practices within an organization, the one that really resonates with me, and whenever I've gone into an organization, the one thing that I'm trying to fix constantly is the handoff process, whether that's the BDR to sales or even marketing to the BDR, BDR to sales, sales to CS, CS to account management, or working with account management to optimize for that particular customer, and then that loop back to marketing to get the case study and the referral. So looking at all of those connection points, where do you what opinions or experiences have you seen where that handoff process is broken and then you've had to go in and fix it, and what was the outcome?
Okay. So I don't know if you know, one of the most three predictive of churn is overselling. When sales are overselling, what happens usually is the onboarding goes sideways. The company puts like tremendous amount of effort to do something that it usually doesn't do. Sometimes stepping away completely of their core businesses. Um, and eventually, uh, they need to be able to make a hard decision whether I let this customer go or I continue the effort. And it all started with, um, you know, not recognizing on time that something was oversold. And one of the things that we're doing, and it hurts you a lot when it comes to an enterprise that like pays maybe six figures. Okay. So one of the things to do is, to get the customer success early on, not to mention also, like 101 alignment on the implementation side and the sales side. But usually putting someone from the customer success organization, whether it's from the onboarding, and if there's not a particular person that is onboarding, so a CSM, to be part of enterprise account deals at some point, to step into the process, to extend, to monitor, to say, listen, this is not something that we do. This is something that will take us a lot of effort, a lot of money that is we're gonna invest in making this something that can be successful. So this is one example that I think speaks for itself.
Yeah, I agree. And the approach that you talked about there is one that I try to instill in a lot of the organizations that I lead, is having somebody from the CS organization embedded towards the end of the actual sales process, so that A, you've introduced that person that they're going to be dealing with post sale. B, there's a little bit of a checkpoint to make sure that we're not overselling, or there is an idea of what we're actually going to deliver when we get to that onboarding process. And I think having somebody embedded into the latter stages of a sales process, I think it's an important step to ensure, you can't ensure, but to minimize these issues from occurring, because the most damaging thing that you can have within any organization is not only the overselling element, but a failed implementation. Because the noise from an upset customer, who's trusted, invested, and then 6 months later, they're still not live when the expectation was this is gonna be a 2, 3-month implementation. Now we're 6 months. This is cost to that business. So therefore, the noise that can be made can be deafening and can be very damaging to other sales processes that are actually engaged. Because if you work within a certain industry, that industry can be very interconnected, and people speak to other people. So I look back at the localization industry that I came out of, and they're all friends. They all speak to each other, and they're not all a customer of one provider. They're customers of multiple providers. And if there's a bad experience, they talk to each other. They share that, and it's really important that you get those expectations set, and then you deliver against those expectations. And one of the best ways to do that, it's not the only way, but one of the best ways to do that is to bring CS into that sales process to ensure that that handoff actually happens correctly.
Definitely. I want to say one more thing. It's related, and one of my best practices that I always insist on. I'm a data freak. I love that everything is somehow documented. And speaking about AI, AI now can leverage on this mountains of data. I think sometimes we are missing a lot of points in the sales process that are super important to the next opportunities with with those customers. It's not just about things going sideways, but it could be even better if some of the notes and intentions and intent put into um, the initial sales will be somehow overlooked. So I really love that things are documented. And today it's really super easy, transcripts, whatever you. And this is something that I see a lot of value coming uh, from, when you also have the tools now to process it. So
And there's no reason why today you cannot grab a transcript of every single conversation that you're having with your customers, because a lot of business is not done face to face these days. It's done via this medium. It's all video conferencing. So there's no reason why you can't grab that transcript from that conversation, obviously following GDPR rules and making sure that you're engaging and asking for permission, but grabbing those bits of data from the customer from that conversation, there's absolutely no reason why mistakes should be happening, because you've got it verbatim from the customer with baked into all of these transcripts. And if you're smart and follow your data freak mentality, which I'm with you there, I'm with the data freak as well, having all of these transcripts collated over a long time, you can see the patterns, you can see how this is developing, and you can interrogate all of these conversations, leveraging the tools such as AI to help you with that. And I think coming into the business world today versus when I first started, I had the yellow pages, I had a pen, a ruler, and a handheld phone, and it's like work your way through straight line and look at the tools that today we have at our disposal to be able to make the best informed decisions. Now it's more difficult to sell today than it was back then. It really is, but you've got so many more tools at your disposal to be able to help you with that. So we've hit that point in the conversation where, and I could speak to you for hours. I truly can. But we have a tradition, which is the rapid fire questions, where we ask 5 questions of all of our guests. It's the same 5 questions. We try and capture that. So back to my point of capturing as much of this data as possible. This is why we do this, is so we can see what's actually important to the business leaders that we speak to within the Outside Seat podcast. So if we go through those 5 questions with yourself, number one, what's the one tool in your GTM stack that you cannot live without?
it's easy. It's the CRM, and more specifically, the report generator and dashboard generator. I cannot. I I have a question, and I would look for the answers by running some numbers and trying to find correlation. My favorite sports.
What's the biggest GTM myth that you would like to kill off?
To kill off.
Yes. So
Ooh.
in the sales world, you get on LinkedIn all of the time, you see things like cold calling is dead, sending emails is dead, this is dead, that's dead. And these are all myths, right? It's like cold calling is not dead. Cold calling is actually um, a very valuable thing to do. What's that one in your world where there's this myth within the customer success, customer support world that it's like, no, no, let's kill that off.
I think today people are not really reading newsletters like they used to, unless there is something very powerful in them. And then I think you should be sending something separately if you have something very powerful. But when you stack a lot of information into uh, an email, unless you want to again promote some kind of an event, and I'm saying, okay, do it separately. There's a lot that goes into, again, AI now changes it. But for a long time, I thought that generating the newsletter never yield that much as it was for me at least. But it's always been something that you said, "Oh, everybody does that. We have to do it."
What's the one metric that you look at first thing on a Monday morning?
Churn and expansion pipe. So the dashboard. That would be the first thing that I want to go look for. how did we progress.
What's the one GTM book that you will always go back to time and time again, even if it's just for a chapter? What's that one GTM or self-help book that you would always go back to, and why?
I hate to say that I don't read GTM books.
Right, okay,
I really don't.
fair enough.
No,
Uh,
I learn from people, I think, and experience. I love hearing, you know, first of all, people that I worked with and, were inspiration for me. I will advise them all the time. I've got great colleagues also here in my line of business in Israel, uh, but I don't do books, not this kind of books. So
fair, very fair. Who is the most underrated person in your professional network that more people should know about?
I think it's more of a role than an actual person. Uh, I think that the most underrated is the head of customer success operations or revenue operation, depends where it sits. Uh, these people are the hands and legs of our operation. We cannot do without them. They are the one that keeps us honest. They are the one that alerts us. They are the one that implements the tools. They are the one that know to by heart what happens in every um, transaction, on every opportunity. And I think that like they're a little bit on the sidelines, but they are so important.
Dare I say it, they are some of our unsung heroes. I recorded an episode recently with a head of RevOps, and we went deep into um, the RevOps organization. And I've got another conversation that I'm about to have with another leader within the RevOps. It's a critical function that doesn't get the kudos that it deserves. It really helps to map the direction that an organization should be going. So I could not agree with you more. These are part of our unsung heroes within the GTM organization. Revital, this has been a really strong conversation. There's so much to dissect from what you've said today, and I cannot thank you enough for taking the time out of your busy schedule to speak to our audience. You mentioned that you've got your own website. Why don't you give that a quick plug now, and we'll put it up on the video and put it into the description as well?
Sure, I will send it over. And I want to say thank you so much for having me. I just enjoyed it and I can talk about it for hours. So I'm sorry if I got, things a little bit too lengthy somewhere.
Not at all. Not at all. The detail is where people find the gold. So it was one of my most favorite conversations that I've had doing this. So thank you so much for again taking the time and for joining us today on the outside seat. Until next time.
Thank you so much.
Your buyers are still sitting in that outside seat. Subscribe on YouTube, follow on Apple or Spotify, drop a like and a follow. It genuinely means the world as we keep growing this channel. And if today's conversation sparked a question or a thought, leave it in the comments. Every month I answer your questions in a dedicated episode, and the best ones might just end up on Instagram, LinkedIn or TikTok. Your question could be the next conversation that we have. This episode was brought to you by Flourish. Find them at helloflourish.com. We will see you next time with a brand new guest in the outside seat.